we were looking for a compact car on Facebook Marketplace that was within the price range of 100,000 to 150,000 pesos, or just below $2,500. This time around, we will still go on to Facebook Marketplace, but this time look for ones in the SUV category. Let's see if we can find an SUV, a good used SUV, just under 300,000, or within the 200,000 to 300,000 peso price range. So as you can see already, I typed in SUV on Facebook Marketplace, and I can already see a bunch of SUVs and MPVs listed within the price range that we have. So let's take a look at the Honda CR-V. So I have a whole video about when we looked for a Honda CR-V of different generations. We didn't have a fixed price range, but we did see a lot within the 200 to 300,000 peso range. But we did also find those that held their value within 400 to 500,000 pesos. And this one is a 2004 Honda CR-V, and it looks like it's well maintained, and it has a couple set of keys. And as you can see, there's this picnic table, and this was one of the standout features for the old generations of the Honda CR-V, is that they had a built-in picnic table that you could get out from the back row of the SUV. So this was a really neat feature for the Honda CR-V for its time. You can see it just easily folds, and this is a feature I wish the old RAV4 also had, but I guess those SUVs are just built different. So the door panels of this SUV is in good condition. You can see the plastic hasn't worn off. So it's common for even the brand new MPVs and SUVs for some of the door panels paint to have been chipped off. And for this one, it still looks good. Looking at the first row of this SUV, this Honda CR-V, the dashboard looks like it's still in good condition. However, I think part of the infotainment system has been taken off here or modified. There were no touch screens back in the day for the 2004 Honda CR-V, so I think the dash here has been modified to add this aftermarket screen, and even the driver's side furniture, the seat for the driver, is not in the best condition. I think we can find even better condition in terms of the seats of the Honda CR-V. So how about we take a look at another model, because we already covered the Honda CR-V in our previous video. So we have here a 2013 Kia Sorento, and I think it's a relatively low price for a Kia Sorento. So for Kia Sorento, it is a 3-row SUV by the car manufacturer Kia, and they essentially use the same platform as Hyundai. And for Hyundai, they have the Hyundai Santa Fe, which shares a lot of components with the Kia Sorento. So this one is a diesel, and it's an automatic transmission, and it says here that it has only gone through one owner. So looking at the exterior here and also a view of the interior, it does look pretty good for the interior. As you can see, it's a 3-row SUV, and I'm not very familiar with how the interiors of these old Kia Sorento should look, but I find it a bit weird that the third row furniture looks a bit different from the first two rows. My suspicion is perhaps the first two rows were improved upon by the owner, and then this is how the third row, how the design of the third row is should be the design for the first and second row. So I'm not sure if the first two rows were modified by the owner, but it looks pretty good for a 12-year-old 3-row SUV. So the Kia Sorento, it's not intended to be a performance car. It's in the same segment. In the US, it would be in the same segment as the Toyota Highlander, and the Toyota Highlander is a very popular car in the US for those looking for a 3-row family-oriented SUV. So Kia Sportage, I'm even surprised that a Kia Sportage that is 3 years older than the Kia Sorento is sold at 295,000 pesos, and it's been driven 145,000 kilometers. That is 90,000 miles. So it's not that many miles for an SUV that's intended for Western consumers, but it is a Kia. I'm not against Kia or Hyundai and whatever they produce in terms of vehicles, but I have heard from mechanics that they can be hard to work on and the parts can be hard to source. But in terms of Kias and Hyundais, what you would want to look for are Hyundai Tucsons and Kia Sportage models, because those are Hyundai's best-selling vehicles, which means that you can get a lot of parts for them compared to other Hyundai and Kia models. So it's Kia Sportage and Hyundai Tucson. So I don't think this Kia has been modified a lot, which is a good news. I think those are the same stock wheels that come on the Kia Sportage. Not really any pictures of the interior, which can make you a little suspicious. Maybe not so suspicious, but you would wonder what the interior looks like. It would be better if you had a view of the interior. Alright, so we also have a Ford EcoSport, and I did cover the Ford EcoSport in one of my articles back then, so let me check that out here. So I did write about the Ford EcoSport and the problems that owners can come across with owning one. So, well, when I wrote this article back in February of this year, I didn't mean to hate on Ford and the Ford EcoSport, but what I didn't like about Ford was that they discontinued their entire sedan lineup to focus on SUVs and trucks. And what happened was that the new entry-level model that Ford had, because they no longer sold sedans in America and in most of their markets, so the entry-level vehicle that you could get from Ford was now the Ford EcoSport. And I'm not going to go into all the issues, but they did have this serious issue with the wet belt timing system. So in a vehicle, it's usually either a timing belt or a timing chain, but for some reason Ford went with a wet timing belt. So what's different about a timing belt and a timing chain in general is that a timing belt is outside the whole engine, and it is not submerged in oil, as opposed to a timing chain where how you maintain a timing chain is that you just keep up with your oil changes so that The timing chain is not, there's no dirty oil with a lot of fragments that circulate on the engine, and as a result that kind of wears out the timing chain over time. But with the wet timing belt system that Ford installed for the Ford EcoSport, is that you could easily wear out the timing belt, the wet timing belt, or the tensioner for those that came in the Ford EcoSport engine. But it's not the only model that Ford has with the wet timing belt system, and I recommend you check out my story on Medium to know some background, and maybe that would lead you to a rabbit hole on the whole issue with the Ford EcoSport. Anyway, I think the Ford EcoSport is still a solid car to own as long as you follow with your maintenance. And what's great about this SUV is it's still gas powered, so well, it's not the most fuel efficient SUV that you can get, but it does come on a small footprint, and if you have a small family, I think this is still a good starter car. It's just that with a lot of Fords, you have to be a lot more diligent in terms of maintenance. Still looks good even for a 10-year-old car. And the wheel cover is no longer there. You might need to purchase a wheel cover for this model. Again, no pictures of the interior here, which is not great if you're looking for an SUV and you don't see the condition of the interior. So how about this? Oh yeah, so the Isuzu Crosswind, it's not exactly an SUV, it's in the MPV category. So what's different about some of the traditional SUVs or MPVs in the Philippines versus the SUVs that are mainly sold as family vehicles overseas is that a lot of even the family-oriented SUVs and MPVs in the Philippines are built on a body-on-frame construction. That means that they borrowed or they use the same platform as a pickup truck. So pickup trucks are not exactly, or they're not usually intended for comfort, or they're not designed in the same way as cars or sedans, where it's just one unibody or monocoque design. But with traditional SUVs and the old MPVs in the Philippines, is that they just use the pickup truck's platform that allows the car manufacturer to save on components, and as a result they can offer it at a cheaper price for the consumer. The only consequence is that it's a bit more uncomfortable, and sometimes they even use leaf springs instead of coil springs, which even makes it more uncomfortable. And I've had this experience in the past when I was still a kid in my teens, just riding those old MPVs like the Mitsubishi Adventure, Isuzu Crosswind. So some of those models were still in the leaf spring setup, and even just after an hour of commuting, even less, you could really feel it in your back all over. That it was not the best commute, and you could feel the pain within your body, even just after 1 hour of traveling inside one. Okay, I think we'll look at a couple more SUVs in the 200 to 300,000 price range. And there's also a Ford Escape here. So the Ford Escape is the counterpart for the RAV4, the CRV, and the Sportage. This is Ford's entrant. So this used to be the entry-level SUV before the Ford EcoSport. The Ford EcoSport has also been discontinued by Ford, but the Ford Escape is still one of the SUVs that Ford produces. There's just a bit of body damage here in the driver's side door, but that, I think that's not really super expensive to fix. Okay, it looks like it's been kept well as far as the exterior goes, and except for the fabric seats here, you can really see that the Ford Escape is built well, even in the dashboard, and it's really on the tier of Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V in terms of the quality of the materials for the dash and the interior. So the odometer reads about 76,000 kilometers, which is pretty low. So 76 km, yeah, below 50,000 miles. So I think that is a really very low mileage for this car. And Ford Escapes, they don't necessarily have a lot of the, especially this one, 2013, they are not known to have very serious issues, especially with the more recent Ford SUVs, like in the Ford Everest that started back in 2018, 2019, and also the Ford Ranger, the new generation of the Ford Ranger. So those come with a lot of a whole host of different issues you may want to check out. But as far as the Ford Escape goes, yeah, it's a pretty good interior. As far as the Ford Escape goes, there's not really too many issues with these old Fords. And that's why if you ask me, the Ford SUV I would want, if it would be the Ford Everest from the early 2000s, which was based on the old compact Ford Ranger platform. That's one of the better SUVs that Ford has ever marketed in the Philippines. Wow, and you can see the rear, the cargo area for the Ford Escape is pretty massive, and this is similar to the cargo area we get in the Toyota RAV4 of the third generation. It's a very massive cargo area for an SUV, and you can do a lot of stuff. You could even use this for business. This is definitely useful for those with families who need, especially with kids who need a lot of stuff, or you can just go on grocery runs and get anything you want. Not a problem for this big cargo hold over here. Okay, engine bay for this Ford. Yeah. There could be a lot of worn out hoses here, but again, as I mentioned in the Honda CR-V and RAV4 videos, it's good to take it for a test drive, 1 to 2 hours. Check the cooling system for any leaks, and of course, bring your trusted mechanic if you have one, and use a reliable scanner to check all the issues with the engine, transmission. All those fault codes can be displayed in that scanner. Alright, I think we will look at one more on the listing. So we have so far looked at a Kia Sorento, a Honda CR-V, Kia Sportage, and also a Ford Escape, and a Ford EcoSport. I think we will look at one more. Okay. It's funny, it's a mini country when it's obviously a K-van. I don't know. Maybe it's just a clickbait title for a vehicle in Facebook Marketplace. So even brand new ones are being sold here. This is obviously just a down payment for these ones. There's a Ford Explorer here with 249K. Yeah, this is just a down payment, not exactly the full price. How about this one? So Montero Sport, 200,000, pesos. Not really the best details you can find. It does look like an old Montero Sport. Even this K-van, I think this is a Suzuki K-van, and they label it as the Audi Q7. So that's just hilarious. Oh, there's another Ford Escape and Honda CR-V there. Oh yeah, so we did talk about the Isuzu Trooper. This is one of the OG SUVs, and this one is built on a truck platform, which Isuzu is really good at making. Their trucks and their diesel-powered vehicles. So this is a very classic SUV, probably not the most good on mileage. We can do a quick check on Fuely for the Isuzu Trooper. So Isuzu Trooper was really one of the more popular vehicles that Isuzu had back in the 90s. And for a 2002 model, there's only, so there are a bunch of owners here, as you can see, in 1990s and also early 2000s. So you kind of get a good idea of what the miles per gallon is for this SUV. And if you ask me, this is pretty solid for an old school truck-based SUV. It's really low, especially for today's standards. 13 mpg, 15 mpg. Those are akin to full-size pickup trucks, right? So 15 mpg is in kilometers per liter. Yeah, that's actually not so bad. 6 kilometers per liter for an old school traditional SUV. So if you're looking for an old SUV, maybe an Isuzu Trooper would not be so bad, especially if you're looking for utility and just durability. Obviously, the owner here has done quite well in terms of maintenance. And as you can see, wow, look at the interior of that Isuzu Trooper, how good that first row is. It's like almost as good as a Land Cruiser or a Lexus. It's been very well kept. This is a pretty good deal. I'm not so sure with Isuzu Troopers if you can still find a good set of parts, but Isuzu has a good part network in Asia and the Philippines, where they sell a lot of their trucks and cars. So I think you can still find some good parts for Isuzu if you need replacement parts. And the cabin is just very well preserved. This probably has a bunch of issues already. I'm not going to judge, but you have to know those issues beforehand before you check it, before you consider purchasing an SUV like this. But as you can see, the interior of this is really good. There's even a sunroof there, and double opening doors, kind of like the GMC Safari. It's very convenient for getting cargo, and and opens both ways, right? The double doors, and those are probably not the most comfortable seats for the third row. But as you can see, the cargo space on this Isuzu Trooper is quite massive at the back of the second row. Alright, so we covered a lot, and as you can see, you can really get a good value for your money if you just look at the listings online, even on just Facebook Marketplace. And for our own benefit here, we will also check out in the future some listings that we could find in websites like Philcoche and even on Edmunds, which is not in the currency of Philippine pesos but in US dollars. And we can find some really good vehicles, especially used cars, in an affordable price range there.